And there we go.
Well, good evening. We want to welcome you to the Blender with Brandon and Madeline Hyman. Shine on my
Evening.
head. With our special guests, Mr. and Mrs. Donald and Lynette McGuigan. I tell you guys, we've been having such an awesome time these last 3 weeks. This will be our fourth week together. And
It's our third week.
well, it's our third week, but fourth.
Right.
Fourth.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, it's just been phenomenal. Their story, guys, listen, if you don't know their story, you want to look at part 1 and part 2. I'm telling you guys, it was emotional, it was enlightening, it was inspirational, sometimes comical. I mean, a whole bunch of different emotions and things were just going, but the information that they shared, the nuggets that they dropped were just, oh man, just amazing, life-changing. And so we thought it not robbery to try to close this thing out on tonight. So we're going to work on this. We're going to close it out on tonight. But I'm telling you guys, if you missed the episode, because I'm telling you, listen, this broadcast has gone across the globe. Thousands of people have been blessed, inspired, encouraged through their story. And so I'm just thankful that we're one of the first platforms that had the ability to allow you guys to hear their story. Because trust me, this is not the last time you're going to hear their story. And it's just been phenomenal. And so we're going to jump right out of the way because the last 2 times, we kind of got hung up. And then with the story, we couldn't get to doing the work. And so we want to know, what did they do to get to where they are now? And what are they still doing to get further down the road? And so, but we were talking with Donald.
Yes, we was talking with Donald.
And go ahead, baby. Donald was what?
Donald was sharing his part of I don't want to say the tragedy at that moment, because he was the one that had to actually go home and see everything that was taking place, and also trying to find a way to be able to tell Lynette what had happened. So he's going to finish up his part of his experience throughout the whole thing.
And so Donald, I don't want to take you all the way back through that, man. If you could kind of sum that up, if possible. I don't know if that's the best terminology for that, but if you could kind of put that in a bubble for us, so to speak, and then, because I want to get to this work, because there was some obvious things that you guys had to put in place, and that you had to work at to get to this point. And not only just to this point, but even going further down the line. So I want to make sure that people really get an understanding of what you guys did to overcome and still overcoming that crisis. So go ahead, Don.
Well, just the recap, part 2. And like you said, I'm not going to go back all the way back, but once Lynette was informed and she came back to the house, my goal was to not have her experience what I had to experience. Everybody's going to grieve or to process what just happened in their own way. So I wanted to alleviate some of that for her. The best way I can explain it, as far as I wanted, what I felt was the best route to go for her, was to kind of keep her isolated and to let her absorb what just happened. The whole visual was something that I didn't think she needed to experience. Right or wrong, that's what I decided to do, and that's what was going to happen in my house that night. So I actually never asked her how she felt about that because we don't like to go back like that. But that time, that was the best thing I thought was going to be the best thing for her. So um, it, yeah, that's just something that you're just going to have to process. So I was trying to alleviate some of the anger and let her just absorb it and grieve the way she needed to grieve. I didn't want to add any extra on it.
You know what, Donald? Before you go any further, because I'm listening to it, and I think we're doing a disservice because if somebody's just tuning in and they haven't watched the last two episodes, they really don't know what you're breaking down. And so I thought we probably can get right there and then move forward. But can you tell us exactly what happened so that we can kind of come abreast, if you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I mean, it's a lot harder than.
I know, and I just thought about it as you were breaking it down, and it was like you kind of you're telling the end of a story, but if this was my first time viewing, I don't know the beginning or the middle.
Right. Um, those that are just tuning in, me and Lynette lost a son to suicide.
Take your time.
And then unfortunately, I was the one that had to come home and deal with this situation. And as I had to deal with that situation, I knew Lynette was going to have to come home. And I just did everything in my power that so she didn't have to. I just didn't want her to remember her son in that way.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, I decided that she was going to have to stay isolated and just process the information that she's receiving without the visual. And yeah, like I said, we never discussed how she felt about that, and and I don't know if she's going to comment on if she felt I did the right thing or not. But at the end of the day, that's what happened. So, but after that, like you said, the work's got to begin. Um, you're never going to forget. Um, you're not going to move on. You're just going to move forward. So, but yeah, I mean, you want to start on to how to move forward, or
Um,
The work?
We can if you want. I didn't really, the fact that I didn't get a visual was way okay for me. That's not what I wanted. I didn't have a chance to grieve that day again because when I came home, there were so many police officers and paramedics in my home. So my house was filled with emergency personnel. And then my girlfriend at the time who brought me home, I'm just trying to understand. And certain parts of my house I can't go in. So I am isolated to this one spot and I have to sit there like literally all day long. And just people coming back and forth and in and out and questioning me. That my issue wasn't, it never crossed my mind about getting a visual. I knew that unfortunately, DRA was still in my home, and there were certain parts I could not go in just because of that. We had to wait on the medical examiner to rule it, and then there's procedures that go after that. And for me, I don't know what went through my head. What went through my head was in this day and age, in this social media day and age, making sure I got a hold of my oldest son. Because fortunately, unfortunately, people don't allow families to grieve the way that they should. And what I did not want was, because at that moment, you know, I had my girlfriend call the young man who called me at first, because again, they were en route to my house. And I didn't want that for them either, because they wouldn't have been able to come in just because of law enforcement. And that's not what I wanted for them either, because they're my son's age. So they're still babies to me. So I ended up calling and telling them to go home and that I would notify them later. I didn't say what happened because I just don't think you should tell young kids, especially not when they're driving. You don't know a person's mindset. And for me, I just wanted to make sure that I was able to find my son, my oldest one, so I could tell him before he saw it on social media. So that was real. And I mean, I wanted to tell my son. I needed to tell my son, but I couldn't even tell their dad. Donald had to make that phone call for me because I could not do it.
And you know, I love you guys. Transparency. I love your strength because we're dealing with now, and there are a lot of people that are struggling. And I just believe that this is the type of testimony that's going to encourage somebody. They may not be going through the exact same things, but to understand that what I'm going through right now, if they made it, I can make it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? I was I made a phone call last week, and I called this individual, and when I called the individual, unbeknownst to me, she was married to a sandbox friend. I'm talking about a guy that I knew ever since I was 3 years old. And I didn't even know that they were married. And so she was just sharing with me how that morning when I called her, she got a call from her company and said, listen, we're letting you go with 700 other people.
Wow.
Now, I'm just calling her. She just got off the phone with them probably less than an hour or two, and she literally don't know what to do. But here I go calling to see how she was doing, and then she's like, hold on for a second. I got my husband on the speakerphone, and I'm like, well, I'm good because I ain't saying that, out of line. But the reason why she had me on the speakerphone is because when she said my name, he was like, who? And just the mere fact of me being able to talk with them and to encourage them in that hour.
Mhm.
I can imagine the impact of what you guys are sharing right now to countless people. We had a young lady last night. I did a watch party with the video, and she was sharing how she had tragedy with two of her sons. And I'm like, man, like people are hurting.
Mhm.
And just to hear, she didn't even hear the work you guys put in it. She just heard the fact that you won.
Right.
Here, she got
Right.
the opportunity to see how good you guys look, how you didn't look what you went through. That alone for her was victory.
Oh, great. Amen.
That alone for her was like I got this. Like I was struggling
Awesome.
earlier, but right now, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And so that's why I said I didn't want to, and it's kind of impossible not to relive some of it,
Mhm.
not all of it, but I wanted to expose people to, hey, you win. That's the
Mhm.
bottom line.
It is.
That's the bottom line. You know what I'm saying? We all got a story. I've shared my story many a times, and sometimes it's hurtful when I think about it.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's frustrating when I think about it. But when I think about that mother that's on the verge of giving up on her son, and I can say, look, I was that thug. I was
Mhm.
that one that people said he wasn't going to be anything. And if I made it, guess what? Your baby can make it too.
Exactly.
Only believe.
Mhm.
And so, oh man, listen, let's change the channel real quick. What did you guys do? That's what I want to know. That's what the world want to know. What did Donald and Lynette do to get from there to here?
Well, a lot. A lot. um, but for me, it started the day of DRA's homegoing service. I remember that night, the night that it happened. It was really late by the time everybody left. And some friends of ours, his friend, his wife, was like, okay, you know what? Pack your stuff. You're going with us. And then we even had one of the assistant pastors. His wife was like, pack your stuff. You're coming over here. And Donna was like, no, she needs some sort of normalcy right now. Like it was so much going on. And so that night I remember saying to him, am I going to get through this? And he said, of course you are. Just like what had happened didn't happen. Like it was just like, oh, we hit a bump in the road. And I was like, okay. And granted, we didn't sleep much the next couple of weeks at all. But I remember the day of the homegoing service and the procession. So everyone came here, his dad and his wife and my oldest son and cousins and all of that. And as people were coming in and police officers that were doing the escort, and I stood there and I just watched everybody and they're talking and they're laughing, but there's solemnness. And I was like, you know what? That day was the hardest the day of my life. But then there's this day because you've had some time to try to get adjusted, and then there's this. And I was like, I just can't keep doing this. Like I can't keep doing this. And then you're around people, and I said, you know what? It's time to go. But before we go, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna pray because I have to change the atmosphere in here. And for me, it was like, girl, where you get that from? That was like that John jumped up on you, my dad. And I was like, what would make you do that? But it was like, I have to change. And I told them, I said, everybody grab somebody's hand and we're going to pray. I said, because what I'm not going to do, I've cried, I've not slept, I've not ate, I've gone through all the emotions. I said, I'm not going to go in this church and have to stand in front of everybody on that front row and watch all these people hug you and give their condolences and all of that is fine and then leave here empty. I said, no, we're going to change it so that at least I'll have some peace. And that peace for me was For God, I thank you that for everyone who comes, there is a life-changing word. I thank you that while DRA is physically gone, his spirit will lead so many people to Christ. I mean, that will make me feel better because I know that while he's gone, look what that did. Look what his last act was for me. And so that was a part of doing the work for me because once I got there, all of it was just a fog and you go through motions. But seeing the people like two of DR's best friends came to receive Christ. And that was it for me. Because it was like, okay, so you know what? Y'all will get to see DRA again. And even though I don't know what church you'll go to, but my prayer has been all along that DRA gets with a group of people where they will all go to the same place. And so I knew where DRA went, and it was like, wow, so now you have led your friends to Christ. That's like the best gift. So once I got through that, I mean, there was still work, but at least it was like, wow, I didn't miss that opportunity. I didn't miss that opportunity. And so, I mean, it took a while. And after that, we decided that we individually needed to go to counseling because we've suffered a tragedy, but we've suffered differently. So I ended up going through counseling at my job and found a young lady who was she was awesome sauce. I mean, like the absolute best. She taught me a lot about myself. She taught me about I mean, we had to start at the beginning. Like I said, I went in there and the first day she asked me, "Why are you here?" And I told her, I said, because my son died and he committed suicide, and I don't know how to go on. I don't know why, and I don't know how to go on. And I'm mad. Like, I can't live like this. I'm mad at everybody. I mean, I'm just snappy. This is not who I am. I just need to find out. I need some peace. And so she was like, okay. And we went through that one session just talking, and we didn't bring up DRA again until maybe the 5th or 6th month. I mean, but in those months, and I went weekly, sometimes twice. But we discussed so many things about me, like how I've lived my life, how my relationship was with my parents, and how I've done things, and what kind of parent was I, and I mean, it was truly awesome. Even in marriage now, like, okay, I'm married to somebody who wasn't DRA's biological dad, but he deals with this too, and how to deal with him and dealing with this. It was work, because even those moments where you get the information and then you come home and you have those moments where sometimes we would disagree or argue and you're stuck. It's a 10, 11 o'clock at night. I just can't call her or go to her office. I have to go back to my tips and tools and be like, okay, this is what she said, because you can hear it and write it down and listen to it on your thing all day. But if you don't do it, then it's pointless. You can't expect anything to work if you don't work it.
That's good.
So I don't know how his therapy was, but for me, we had homework. I had to. The hardest thing she told me was that I had to end up writing letters. And I had to write letters to family members. And then she said, and then you have to write a letter to DRE. Now, when she said all the family members, I was like, oh, yeah, yep. That's going to be easy. That's going to be easy. You got to write a letter to dad. And I was so mad. I was like, oh, yeah, I got this. That's going to be easy. And then she said, and your letter, you need to write a letter to DRE. And I was like, oh, see, you crossed the line. We are not doing that. Don't ask that. She was like, I didn't say that it had to be now, but it needs to be done. And I was like, what? I'm not doing that. She was like, you got some stuff you need to get out. And you need to. And I was like, and I did it, but it took me almost a year.
Wow.
To write that letter. And I took it to her and I read it to her. And she was like, this is a letter that should be published because you've sat in this. Because I had to sit in, but I really had to sit in that letter and just be transparent. Like, just coming from a mom that doesn't always get it right, a mom that's sorry, a mom that did the best she could, just pouring out my heart. So, I mean, it was work. It was work. And it was not, it was rewarding because it really helped. It wasn't always easy because you go home and in your mind, you're like, okay, she said do this, 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 this. And so when I say it, he gonna say this. And it's gonna be like, now I'm gonna say this, and then he gonna say this, and we're gonna be good. But then when I said it and he didn't respond that way, it was like, no, this not how it went in her office. So now we gotta figure out, because I wasn't expecting that response. So you wasn't supposed to say that. You were supposed to feel like this. And so now it's like, okay, so now we arguing. And it didn't go like that in her office. So he can tell you how his therapy went and then what was our breaking point.
So let me ask you this question before you go there. When you talked about the letter, I've been taking some notes, okay, but I want to go with the letter real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What did the letter symbolize?
For me, the closure. And by closure, I mean knowing that he's okay and allowing myself to be okay with the fact that he's okay not being here, if that makes any sense.
A lot.
Because in the months that followed, I would have one of my best girlfriends would always tell me that she had dreams about DR, and she'd be like, I had a dream about D. And because they talk all the time. I mean, that was his aunt, and they had conversations. And so, and I was like, oh, and she was like, he's okay. And it kind of made me not bitter, but it caused a little angst just because it was like, well, why he coming to you? You know what I mean? It was like, I ain't having no dreams. Like, why is he coming to you? And so one day I was sitting in the kitchen. No, I was in the bedroom, and I was sitting there looking out the window, and I was like, just thinking like, why? Like, just why? Like the timing, everything. And I was like, God, I'm not dreaming. I'm not having the dreams. Like, I just need to know that he's okay. I need that peace in my soul about it. And it wasn't that I didn't have the peace. It was just, there was no closure for me. And I was like, And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know. Joycelyn said he's okay. So, and I know where he is. So I know that he's okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm just talking to God, and I'm looking out the window, and this butterfly showed up. And I'm like, it's a black butterfly. And I was like, I've never seen a black butterfly. And he came and sat right on my little bush. And I was like, and I got up and went to the window. He never moved. And I'm like, that's different. I've never seen a black, like all black, not the yellow, not the orange. I was like, I've never seen a black butterfly before. And then he went and flew away, and then he would come back. And I was like, wow. I mean, they're beautiful anyway, but I was like, that's really different. Okay. About a week later, I'm sitting in the bedroom cleaning up, and I walked past the window, and the black butterfly came back. And I was like, I've been here 5 years. I've never seen a black butterfly. So I was like, you know what? Okay, Google. Meaning of black butterflies. And it means new life. And I was like, there it is. Like, there it is. For me, that was it. I didn't need the dream. It was like, okay, God, you got him. I'm good. I'm good now. I'm good. And so the letter while it took me a long time to write it, for me, it was more the closure. Like, okay, I will never understand your why because you're not here to tell me. But I do know that you're in a better place. And though so that whatever you were going through mentally, you don't have those pains anymore. You don't have those heartaches anymore. That I'm still here, that I still love you, that, I will continue to let you live by who I encourage and how I talk about you and who I can bring to you to let them know that what you did does not have to be your end. It does not. And so that helped me. It was more the closure for me to realize that I don't have to keep putting myself through this. I can let it go. And the healing, it was like you can't talk about something that you're not healed from. And so when people would ask me, it was like, I wouldn't shun them. I just wasn't ready.
Gotcha.
And I was like, yeah, no. Or people that hadn't seen us in years would come and be like, hey, girl, how your kids doing? How are the boys? Mm. And immediately I'd be like, and I literally couldn't say anything but, oh, good. Mm. But now I'm at a place to where I can let them know. And then when they're, because most people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. All is well. All is well. And then people, they probably look at you like, I don't know how she can say all is well when she just told me. But it is. It's been a process.
And that's what I wanted to touch on, because there are things that at the tragedy or at the crises, there comes a time where there has to be closure. Mm-hmm. Not you never said that it was forgotten. You never said that it was never remembered. Mm-hmm. That there was closure.
Right.
And so in healing, there has to be closure. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I suffered years ago, a gunshot wound, one of many. But this one particular one left an inch gap in my shoulder. And so in order for me to move that shoulder properly, I had to wait for closure. Mm-hmm. I still got the markings. I can still look at it. I still can remember that day. All of those things are there present. But in order for me to be able to move with this shoulder, I had to allow for that closure to take place.
Right.
And so many people are going through or have gone through, but they never allow closure. And so the very thing that they've gone through is an open wound. Mm-hmm. It's pussy and it's bleeding and all these different things, and they can't function. They can't flow. There's no normality to their life because of that.
Yep. And so, because they haven't given a chance to heal. And that's what my therapist told me. I said, why are we going back to like when I was a child? And she said, because you have some scars and some stuff that you haven't gotten to the root of a thing. She was like, Diari is not the root of a thing. Diari is an issue. But that happened because of the root of some stuff. And I was like, no, it didn't. Because no. She was like, oh no, we gotta dig deep. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah, so you have to get to the root. She was like, I said, oh, okay. Like one of the things she had me do, which was extremely hard. Thank God for Donald and friends. We had to have the house remodeled, mainly the basement, because I just wouldn't walk in the basement. And Donald was like, well, we'll do the basement first. Well, what do you want to move? And I was like, I really don't, but I can't stay here like this. And he was like, okay, so we'll remodel the basement. I said, it has to look totally different. So we ended up doing the whole house, but he was like, let's start with the basement, because if you still can't go downstairs, then we have to move. So I was like, okay. And so I went to therapy and I told my therapist, I said, so next week we start um, demolition on the basement. We're going to, I was telling her we would redo the house so to see if I could still live here. And she said, oh, okay. So you got some homework. And I was like, no, we got contractors, everything's good. She was like, no, you have some homework. So before that demolition happens, you have to go downstairs and address that room. And I was like, no, I don't. And she was like, yes, you do. I said, oh, no, ma'am, that's not happening. She said, so it has to happen because this is what's going. I said, no, because they're going to make it new and it's going to be good. And she was like, not so much. What's going to happen is they're going to redo the house, which in essence is putting a Band-Aid on a bicycle scar that needs air to heal. And I was like, no, I don't need to see it. She said, you don't need to see it that day, but you need to go address what has happened so that you can heal from it. So when the house does get redone, you'll be fine. And I just never thought about it because I was like, no, I don't need all of that. So, it was like, okay, I'll do it. Because if I ask you for advice, why would I not take your advice? If I come to you as someone that I trust enough to give me sane and good advice, then to not take your advice is stupid to me. So I ended up calling my two girlfriends and I was like, girl, let me tell you what she said. I gotta go downstairs and be in the room and before they tear it up. And they were like, okay. And I called them because I knew they would be like, girl, you don't need all of that. This is my amen corner. And they were not. And they was like, okay, we'll come over. We're going to come over. We're going to bring food. And I was like, no. And they came over. What time did they come over? It was about noon on a Sunday. I wasn't able to fully walk. And it's only maybe 8 steps. I wasn't able to fully.
It's more than 8 steps. 12. It's like 20. County public school.
It's more like 20.
Right. Y'all been over there.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I wasn't able to literally walk. It took me until about 6 o'clock that evening to actually just walk downstairs. And even walking down there, and they walked with me. Donald stayed upstairs. They were like, you can stay upstairs. We got her. But he was literally on standby. Like the minute I hear, I'm coming. And I got down there and I was like, it's so cold down here. And so I was like, okay. And then it took me another 15, 20 minutes just to even walk in the room. And immediately, once I walked in the room, it was like, okay. And I had issues. I ended up having, I don't want to call it like a panic attack, just because what I didn't want to see, I saw. My eyes went exactly to points where stuff happened. And I was like, and they followed my eyes, so they knew. And I ended up like hyperventilating and I was like, okay, that's enough. And they were like, that's all you had to do was go in the room. And we've addressed the room. And they ended up having to get my inhaler. And I ended up coming upstairs. I'm glad I did so that I don't ever have to wonder. But that's after the fact, though. I'm glad I did. But it was work. And I'm telling you, if it were not for my girlfriends who literally held my hand, they got there at 12 o'clock. This was on a Sunday. Kids have school the next day. They got work. They never once said, well, we got to go soon. It was just, they were there. I'm talking about good covenant girlfriends who even then downstairs was like, okay, we're going to pray. You're going to have peace in this. And so even in that process, in this whole process, it's like, get you some good girlfriends and some good guy friends to make sure that no matter what's going on or whatever, the good times and them not so good times, that they got your back. They have your back. They're there for you. When you don't feel like praying or you can't pray, they go in on your behalf. because there were moments I didn't feel like praying. I didn't want to. I couldn't. And they were right there. I mean, just on it. So that was one of the hardest work times for me. I had to do the work. Like I could have easily been like, no, I'm not doing it. Or, yeah, I'll do it later and then let the demo happen.
So
And then
so if I would use that as a nugget or tool, would I call that addressing the place of tragedy?
mm-hmm,
So
absolutely.
one of the keys is addressing the place.
Exactly.
Because you had to go to the place.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the incident itself, but the place.
Exactly.
Okay. And I love that because I had to do that myself. And in my mind, I was like, that's crazy that I'm doing this, but I had to.
So your mind won't have control of that later
Correct.
on.
And so I literally like had to go to the place and stand. I had to stand in the exact place where I was shot, and I had to speak to it.
Yeah.
Because over time, my lack of addressing it was consuming me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I really was walking around as a human bomb, time bomb,
Yeah.
literally ready to explode.
Taking it out on people who don't have anything to do with it.
Exactly. And it was like it's like, we was growing up. It was a song. It was a rap song that used to come on. It was almost like my mantra. And this is something you can't understand. And I literally like sing that song every single day until I went to that place to address that area. And
Yep.
once I went to that place to address that area, that song left.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's when the healing can
yes,
begin.
if you're watching, if you're listening, you're going to have to address the place of tragedy. You're going to have to address that place of crisis, because if you don't, it's going to always present itself to you.
Yeah, those thoughts will always come. They'll come.
Always. And then I wanted to ask you this before we go on. You said you had to write letters.
Mm-hmm.
Were the letters to those that participated in some sort of hurt, or was it okay? Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
Yes. And I'll make it quick because I want Donald to be able to talk about his therapy. But I had some family issues, and so I had to write letters to family. Like me and my mother had some challenges, and then me and my sister had some challenges, and then I had to write a letter to Diari's dad. Because again, Diari and his dad had a lot of challenges, and we had a really rocky marriage and even worse divorce. And so she told me to write the letters, and she was like, just get it out. You just want to get, because in here, it'll mess around and it will kill you. And she was like, you just need to be able to get it up. I'm not saying you have to send the letters. I'm just saying just write them and get it out. And so she was like, they don't have to be nice. You don't have to be politically correct. You're hurting. Get it out. Just write it. I can't stand you. You made me feel this. And so I ended up doing that. And they were mean, but I could tell it was just like mean. And after sitting in it and reading what I wrote, it was like, wow, you've been hurt. And so I ended up rewriting them.
I'm glad you said I was going to ask that question because
like one of the letters to one of the people was, I hate you for how you treated me. And after sitting in it for a while, I changed it to, I am so hurt by how you've made me feel. Because then it's like, that's strong. And I don't hate you. I'm angry right now and I'm hurt and I'm mad at how you haven't been here. But that still, after sitting in it, doesn't equate hate. And so I had to change it to how you've made me feel. This is not about you. This is about me and how you've made me feel. Whether you own it or not, this is my letter. And so it really helped, and it gave me some closure, even especially writing their dad. It was like, you know what? For so many years, I just disliked you. But now I'm at a point where it's not that. I feel bad because we both suffered a traumatic loss. And I was able to say, I wish you the best. I pray that you get some help because therapy has helped me. And so I know it works if you work it. So I left it so that we can still be cordial, but you heard how I felt. And it wasn't nasty, it was truth. And sometimes people think that you're being mean because you've given them truth. And it was forward, like this is where we're at. This is where the rubber meets the road because we have an older son, but this right here, if Diari was it, this is it for us. And so I need to let you know that I hope and pray that you still have another son. So we both have another son that we have to be here and do for. So we have to see each other. We have to deal with each other. Let's just get it right.
Okay. Donald, because you the man. You are the man.
Yes, he really
is. So I need you, brother. If it's just 2-1 that we can just put in our pockets and carry around with us on a daily basis, what did you do? What work did you do? Because I know you were trained and I know you have a certain skill set, but outside of that training and skill set, nothing can compare to this.
No, you can't prepare for nothing like this. And just as men in general, we don't like to put our feelings out there anyway. So we tend to keep our feelings to ourselves, and that is not good. The biggest thing that I think that I learned, even if with all my experience, is that you have the understanding that everybody grieves differently. And just because the other person is not grieving the way that you think they should grieve, does not make it a bad thing. You just have to understand that they grieve differently. And another big takeaway that I had to learn is everybody has triggers.
Uh-huh.
And understanding your partner's triggers is helpful for you so you can do the work not to trigger it. But if y'all don't express each other's triggers to each other, then you are never gonna know.
And
so
learning the triggers.
Right. So you have to do the work to figure out what your triggers are.
Mm-hmm.
And once you know what your triggers are, explain those triggers to your significant other so she knows what your triggers are also. And that's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was probably one of our biggest challenges, was learning each other's triggers, and understanding that we don't grieve the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, make a long story short, I believe she had some resentment towards me because I didn't grieve the way she wanted me to grieve. If y'all understand what I'm trying to say. So, and this is where a lot of men fail. I'll put it on the men because we don't want to hear that. I'm not telling you what my triggers are because I don't have any triggers. You know what I mean? I'm good. I don't got no triggers. What you talking about?
Yeah.
So we have to do better, and that's that's when you're looking in the mirror, and that's the hard call to say, hey, I need some help. I can't I can't do it by myself. And
And recognizing that together and not resenting each other for it. Because we had gotten into a blow up so bad one day. It was almost like that volcano, and it just erupted. And we were in the bedroom, and we were talking, and he said something to me. We had just already been having some issues, walking on eggshell around each other. And I was doing something, and he just went about what I thought was life as usual. And he said something to me, and I said, "No, you just don't get it." And he was like, yeah, I was doing something different. And you remember that day?
Yeah.
And
that was a bad day.
It was a bad day. And I said, you know what? I am tired of this. And he said, what do you mean you tired of? I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, you walk around here like nothing bothers you, like you don't, like what we have gone through, you don't care about. Because he would just, his demeanor is so calm. Like I'm walking around here, I'm emotional. I know it's good, but because I have different stuff to go through when that mail comes, when you have to go do his taxes that final time, I had to go do probate, all of that stuff is triggers. Stuff just keeps coming up. And he said, excuse me? And I said, you act like nothing bothers you, like this doesn't affect you at all. And it was like, boom. He was like, oh, it doesn't affect me? You don't think I think about this every day? And I was like, and instead of going back and forth, I stopped and I was like, because I said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I knew I didn't want this, but I said, I think I'm gonna leave. I think we need to separate because this is not working. I don't want to keep going on like this. And he was like, I said, you act like you don't care, and I'm having trouble with this. And he was like, you don't think I care? You don't think this doesn't affect me every single day? And he just got so emotional. And in that instant, I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, there it is. I didn't want to argue no more. It was like I had been looking for this for months and I didn't see it. And he was, from that, and then we decided, we was like, okay, you know what? We need therapy. Like marital counseling, because neither one of us wanted to go, but we knew we couldn't go like this. It was that day was bad. Because we hardly ever argue. And that day was like, whoa. And so that's when we decided that we can still do our individual thing, but we need counseling because we've gone through this together, but differently. And we need to know how to cope and how to move on and learning what triggers are, and like my triggers aren't your triggers, and how I can prevent them, and how we need to start communicating with each other. That was it. And even in therapy, when we were talking and it would get heated and the counselor would say, okay, so how about try this at home?
the
negative space. He was like, okay, I see we're going into a negative space right now. So from now on, when y'all get home and y'all feel yourself, be like, you know what? We're in that negative place right now. And we did it. It was funny because it was like, this is so corny, but it worked. It was like, you know what? We're in that negative space right now. And it allowed us to calm down a little bit. And even if we said, we'll give it 30 minutes, and then come back, but you still had to do the work. He can tell you all the tips and tools. And if you come home and don't get into an argument and don't use them, you've wasted time and energy and money. Like, if you don't want it to work, then stop going to people and asking God and for help. Stop. If you're not going to do the work, just be real with yourself and say, you know what, I ain't going to do the work.
And you know what? Because we're almost out of time. I love this work here. And so I have 5 takeaways. The first one is addressing the parties of the hurt or tragedy. Because in the letters you address the parties. You wrote some letters that you didn't have to give out, but you addressed them. You addressed some individuals that had a dominant role in your views in relationships. Correct. And so that's number one, because we have to address those things, you know. And I must have talked to your counselor, because I'm pretty sure I did this stuff, and so, but it was important because all of that brings forth healing. All of that brings forth deliverance. But the last nugget, I gotta make the first one, is counseling. Seek counseling. There's nothing wrong with counseling. The Bible says that there's safety in the multitude of counseling. And so too many of us, we don't seek counseling. We don't seek those that have been trained in particular areas to assist us for whatever reasons. Reasons. But if you don't, eventually it's going to come back to haunt you.
Right, because you even if you're a thinker and a communicator, you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. No. You are not. We tried. We couldn't. And we get along great. When I say marriage counseling, people are like, y'all did marriage counseling? We're fine. And we have been fine. But we hit this fork where it's like, we're having some issues dealing with this tragedy. And we're going to have to, we need to move forward. We need to move past this so we can move on and do better. And we don't know how to do it.
And so I got that. And then you said, address the place of tragedy. So you had to go to that space, that room, and you had to address that place. And then Donald picked it up and said that everybody grieves differently. And so you got to understand, and I'm gonna add to that, is that we're different. So whether it's grieving, whatever it is, we're different. And you have to understand that we're different. And I myself have been called cold. I lack emotion.
A lot of men are like that, like he said, because they don't want you to know that they have emotions. And we are just like emotional beings. So it's just nothing for us. So when you wall up your emotions, then it comes across like, oh, you just don't care. When that's not what he was saying at all.
Exactly. Because we're processors. And a lot of time in our processing, it seems as if we're not showing, or we may not be showing emotion because we're processing. And so, and then he said that triggers, understanding that we all have triggers, but what's important about those triggers is relating those triggers. Because it means nothing to have a trigger if the person you're with or the people you're with don't know what those triggers are. Yeah, I remember years ago, I was telling my wife something. I was telling Madeline something, and she did something. I said, "Why are you trying to figure this out? I already told you." and so for me, I'm a relator. I relate exactly what gets me going. You don't have to try to figure that out. Just remember what I told you. If you remember what I told you, you already know my triggers. You already know my likes and my dislikes. That communication is important. And I'm not sure, but I think everything that you guys shared with us came out of counseling.
Yeah, majority of it.
Because it's important, you know what I'm saying? Because that's somebody that's looking from another viewpoint.
Right. Totally.
Yes. Nothing to gain by telling one person or the other what needs to be done, but that you all be whole.
Exactly. Which is the end
which is the
result.
end result. Oh man, listen, it has been an absolute pleasure. It's been a pleasure having you guys on. I mean, and people are just jumping on. We want to thank you guys. Listen, everybody, this is Mr. and Mrs. Donald and Lynette McGuigan. She has an awesome book, How to Have Peace When You've Lost Your Peace. You want to get that, Amazon, Kindle. You can email her. Listen, it's life changing. There are some tools, and of course, we weren't able to go through everything, but that's what the book is for. All we just want to do is give you a snippet. It's like a preview.
Right.
We get you preview, we get your mouth water, you go buy the ticket, you go see the movie. Well,
exactly. Do the work, it'll bless your life. Do the work, it'll bless your life.
Get that book. How can they get the book again?
They can go on Amazon and they can get a paperback, or they can do Kindle if they don't want the paperback. Or you can inbox me or email me on Instagram. It's Alindios. On Facebook, it's Lynette McGuigan. Or you can even email me. My email is alindios@yahoo.com. And that's ALINDIOS@yahoo.com. Because I do keep copies. So if you just rather have me mail you one, that's fine.
And so listen, guys, you want to get that book in your arsenal. And again, it was a pleasure having you guys on.
Thank you for allowing us to be transparent.
Kelly, the name of the book is How to Have Peace When You've Lost Your Peace.
Hold the book up.
I got you.
How to have peace. Oh yeah, I like that. How to have peace when you've lost your peace. So you see that play on word, peace and peace. So listen, guys, you want to get that book. Again, we thank you guys for being with us.
Before we go real quick too, Donald is part of a program that help, is it just young men or young men and young women?
Young people in general, ages 11 to 20, the Youth Explorer program, law enforcement program out of District 5 in Clinton. Everything's shut down right now, but as soon as all this Corona stuff is over, we're going to be back and running. So you can get at me at all platforms also. Donald McGuigan. I'm sure you have my name, spelling, or whatever. Reach out. We'll make it happen.
Okay, guys. So listen, they're doing some great things. Again, it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for sharing the tools that you guys use to be victorious. Listen, guys, you can get you can listen to this replay when, sweetheart?
On Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. on WJMS Radio Live 365.
Live365.com. You want to get that? Listen.
Also YouTube, on our YouTube channel. It's out on YouTube as well. Well, it'll be on YouTube. The part 1 and part 2 is already on YouTube. This will be on YouTube tomorrow.
So again, we love you guys. Thank you for being with us. And until next time, bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.